fashionably late as always. I am Jonny Torres. Hello, how you doing? This is The Yard Sign, the most important relevant podcast in politics. We appreciate you for watching. Again, if you are joining us for the first time, all you got to do is like, share, comment on this episode. Also, you can follow us on any of the social media platforms, even Parler. Is it even still up? I don't even know. But just look for The Yard Sign or The Yard Sign Show, wherever you might be, and you'll be able to enjoy some great political content like we have for you tonight. We hope you are ready to have a good time with us. We have a special guest, and then, of course, our cast of characters. But before we do that, let's go ahead and jump into tonight's topics. Of course, I do want to say before we start tonight's show, we are coming to you live from the Bake More Pies studios in Tampa, Florida. Again, for any of your digital marketing and advertising needs, look up bakemorepies.com. Okay, Biden inauguration. What didn't happen, and did we even watch it? We're going to talk about that. Of course, the executive orders that he very quickly signed. I think Anibal said just before the show, we're at about 27 of them. Don't worry, we won't go through all 27 of them, but we will certainly have a lot to say about them. Biden's vaccine plan. And has anybody seen it? Because apparently neither has he. And then, of course, we'll look ahead to Florida politics 2022. And that leads me into tonight's guest. All right, over on the main table, not our guest, but now a regular. On the left, Joe Wicker. Not politically, just, organizationally. And sorry, I didn't have you guys up yet. There we go.
There we go.
Sitting next to Mr. Joe Wicker, that is Tyler Payne, our guest for today. How are you, sir?
Pretty good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we'll get into why you're joining us and how you fall into the Florida politics 2022, 21-22 cycle. We'll just kind of lump you in with those guys. And then, of course, on the far right and looking ever so holy today is Mr. Anibal David Cabrera.
I don't know what you're talking about.
So, again, thank you so much, Tyler, for joining us. This sounds really... hang on, I don't sound right. There we go. Tyler, thank you so much for joining us. And one of the reasons we wanted to bring you on, actually, let me just run through the reasons I wanted to bring you on. One of them, you've been involved with the Pinellas County Young Republicans for quite some time. I'll let you go into that a little bit. And also have kind of put your money where your mouth is, as they say, figuratively, literally, in running for office. You're currently a sitting, is it a council member or committee?
Commissioner.
Commissioner, okay. City commissioner for the city of Treasure Island. So, again, welcome to the show. We're excited to have you here. When did you join the YRs? Because I know that was kind of the starting point, right?
Yeah, I've been involved in the YRs since 2015 when I graduated from Stetson Law School.
Oh, very cool. So another Stetson grad.
Yes, sir.
I think that's a requirement at this point to join the Pinellas County Young Republicans.
Yeah,
it seems like you have to have graduated from.
We just recently broke the trend of Stetson law grads as presidents. With
that's right.
Lucas was a curveball and accountant. So.
Oh, he snuck in. How dare he?
Yeah.
Those finance people.
That's all right. I'm sure he's going to have to go to law school at some point just to stay in office.
Join the club.
Yeah, that's right. And also, so now you've been in the City Commission of Treasure Island for how long?
I was elected to the City Commission in 2018.
Okay. And how's that been going? What's that experience been like?
It's been awesome. I love to give back. I grew up in Treasure Island, so my dad moved there in 1970, and he lives in his childhood home now, so it was never really an option but to move back there after undergrad and law school and buy a home. And I was always interested in politics.
Well, that's using the term move lightly. I mean, heck, right. How far is Stetson from
Right, 5 minutes.
Right. So you're the one using the bike lane.
Right.
It's a great commute. I love it.
Of course, again, we have a lot of people that come through the Young Republican organization, and people spin off into different roles. I mean, we have people that go on to run campaigns or work for the party or run for office like you did. And again, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 30 years old.
Okay. All right. And so actually one of the underlying, I'd say, headlines or storylines in your candidacy is that there's a large age disparity between yourself and the incumbent, not only mayor, but also some of the council members, right?
Absolutely. I'm by far bring the average age on the commission down quite significantly.
Well, one of the things we talked about before we went on air was how much Treasure Island has changed. Billmar Beach Resort just happens to be a sponsor for one of my clients. So shout out to those guys. But I got to spend a weekend there not too long ago, and it's amazing how much the beach has changed. It's one of those where it's hard, right? Because I'm sure, and you can expand on this, which is they're trying to hold on to what makes Treasure Island great, and what makes it kind of this great little beach town. But then at the same time, you want that growth. You want these businesses to come in, and you want to see the community grow and the business community grow, right?
Absolutely. And we have such a wide variety of types of living. I mean, you go down to Sunset Beach, and there's a lot of small beach cottages that are walking distance to the beach, and then you have the business district right in the middle. You have the hotels on the beachfront, and then you have really big residential single-family home neighborhoods that are just off Gulf Boulevard. So you have all these varying perspectives and constituents that you have to represent.
I think it's really interesting to see how that is like a quintessential Florida, like from a small beach community to now grown up and maturing, and seeing how it's going to now transition to more commercial, more economic growth for your city. I'm going to say right off the bat, I did not think Treasure Island was a city. I thought it was Thunderbird, and that's all I knew of Treasure Island. But
coming from a Hillsborough guy, you guys have 3 municipalities over here.
Yeah,
I think.
And
In
Pinellas,
Pinellas, we have over 20 municipalities.
I know you guys enjoy government much more than we do.
Every single little spot on the map down the beach has its own city government.
So I love the very much different ecosystems that you guys have in your city. I found out that once I started thinking about it, I actually do have a few relatives that live and friends that live in DI. And I think it's interesting to see how your campaign is going to probably be different than most campaigns within that city. Like, can you explain that, what you're doing differently, and like what is your opponent doing?
Well, and with the age gap between me and my opponent, that's one factor to that. And then also just my experience in politics in general has really instrumental in how you run a campaign. I've seen how campaigns are run. I have a campaign manager. I have all of the literature lined up and the mailers, and have the connections to get all of that done, which traditionally in a small town race, you kind of just do it off the cuff, and you hire random people to do random things.
Is it nonpartisan?
It's nonpartisan, yeah.
Okay. So what's your messaging look like there? I mean, is the community, is that a heavily Republican area, or is it mixed?
Registered voters, definitely more heavy Republican, but I was out on the in the neighborhoods this weekend knocking on doors, and there's a lot of fatigue over the election in November, that people are just either burnt out or they're still fired up about it. So I get people that are texting me and saying, "Are you a Republican or a Democrat?" I'm like, well, it's a nonpartisan race, but me and my opponent are both registered Republicans, so that
that helps you.
Plays into
that
the
helps you.
situation of, well, if you're on the other side, you have two.
Do you have?
I'm
sorry. I thought you. So are you and the incumbent the only people in the race?
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So then good.
It nullifies that completely.
It's a non-issue. I mean,
good.
It should be.
So that's a non-issue for you. Yeah.
Well, and also, so if you can, just give us an example of again, having that fresh new perspective generationally, just being upfront about it. Like, what do you see? What do you see as maybe the biggest issue that you need, or that you want to tackle, if you're successful come March?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds small and trivial maybe, but communication is one of my biggest issues that I want to change, and I think it is generational, because I am familiar with, and I've demonstrated that I can use platforms like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram to communicate effectively with my constituents, and that's something that the current mayor just created a Facebook page for the first time ever for this campaign, and he has 30 people following his page, whereas I have over 500 people already following my page, and a separate account for my commissioner position that has over 500 likes as well. So it's just getting that information in front of the constituents is something that I think it just comes more naturally to someone that
is there anything in particular? The age is self-evident, right? You said your opponent's 80?
85.
85, okay, and you're 30.
Yeah.
Okay. And the city commission is how many people are on that?
There's 4 commissioners and the mayor.
So
there's 5 total on that.
Okay. So when you got elected, the average age went from like 79 to 65.
Yeah.
So then the age is obvious, and not to put down senior citizens. Obviously, I mean the guy's probably got a lot of experience and brings a lot of wisdom.
life.
But how are you distinguishing yourself from your opponent? I mean, what's the messaging out there to the community?
Yeah, it's just a fresh perspective on things. I mean, we've had so much time. I mean, our mayor before that was a really good family friend, but he was one of the ones that encouraged me to do it because he wanted younger people involved in politics. And that's something Anibal asked me before the show was, what do you feel like the reception is even from older residents? I think they want to invest in the future and get our younger people involved in politics. And it's been a message of mine to share with our fellow young Republicans that it's not an insurmountable feat to run for office. And you can start small with a city election or something.
Yeah,
so.
I think your example as a YR, someone that has been a part of the organization for a little bit now, has seen about 2 cycles of where how it really is how you work a neighborhood, how you work a campaign, how you work a call list, and the fact that you're able to now use those skills that you gained from working with the YRs and with the FFYRs, you're able to now put that into your own campaign. Yeah. Now we are hearing from the other side of the pond that that some established Republicans with inside leadership, I don't know what leadership honestly is in Pinellas County, but
oh boy,
but they're saying that they're a little annoyed the fact that you are running against an incumbent. Have you seen that at all on the campaign trail?
I've not heard that at all, so maybe I'm just sticking my head in the sand. But I think the party doesn't really get involved in the smaller city races, so that kind of surprises me. And I would think that someone who's invested a lot of time into the county party and the Young Republicans, I don't think my opponent's ever been to one of those meetings, so I would think they would see it as a plus.
Has Peter Schwartz done his 30 under 30 yet?
Yeah, he did.
For influence. He did it for influence, yeah.
I'm still waiting on him to do the 45 under 45 and maybe the 50 under 50.
Maybe I'll hit that.
All right, well, Tyler, thank you so much again for coming on the show. And so if somebody wants to learn more about your campaign, help out, donate, et cetera.
Yeah, votetylerpayne.com or Vote Tyler Payne on Facebook.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you again for joining us on the show.
Absolutely.
Let me go ahead and pull up tonight's topics here again. Oh, hang on the wrong screen. There we go. Let's go ahead and dive into Biden's inauguration, and we'll just make this pretty quickly here with the first question being the obvious. Did you watch it?
Yes or no? No. I did not watch it. I watched YouTube clips of our new Hunger Games leader, Lady Gaga, in her beautiful outfit. I thought it was quite touching. I saw J-Lo speak in Spanish for the second time on the diocese of the Capitol building,
which was nice. She
I thought
made the effort to learn Spanish.
Yes, and it also was not pre-recorded, so it was good to hear that.
She learned it a while back, but
I was afraid for those high.
A lot of people don't know she's not a native speaker.
No, she's not at all.
Right.
So
she barely learned it for Selena.
Don't get me wrong,
because she's Canadian, right?
No,
she's not.
No, she's from Brooklyn. The Bronx?
Oh, that's
Bronx.
right. I'm sorry. Yeah, Jenny from the block.
Yes,
yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't let all that bling.
Depending who's interviewing her, she's also Puerto Rican. So
I watched it in the background. I mean, I was working and I just had it on in the background. So I did pay attention to Lady Gaga because I always like to hear people do the national anthem to see if they're going to screw it up or how they're going to
know where you were going to go at the end of that sentence.
How they're going to. No, I was just watching just to see how she did with the national anthem or whatever, and she did fine. Yeah, and she did fine.
Well, it's such a hard song to sing.
Yeah, but some of these people that are famous, they're not just singers, but they're also famous. Some of them really try to make it their own or something, and I don't know, just
right.
But
she's done it a whole bunch of time. I mean, didn't she do it at a Super Bowl? I think
so.
She did it at the Super Bowl.
Well, I remember her Super Bowl performance was.
She jumped off. Yeah, she jumped
it was
off
wild,
the stadium
Yeah.
She did a great job.
Yeah, it was wild.
Well, what's crazy is actually, so last night I was watching A Star Is Born, which she's the star of.
Oh, okay.
And it's crazy because I've told people, like, if I were to have seen her like the way you see her in that movie, which is in maybe the most natural of
Yeah.
her looks ever,
Yeah.
I would not recognize her.
Yeah,
Like, you
yeah.
even comparing her to the person that's saying at the inauguration, and it looks like two completely different people.
Yeah.
I will say this: if you followed her career and know that she's classically trained
Yeah.
from Juilliard and everything else, and then her renditions with who was the gentleman that she was doing a lot of songs with, like
Tony Bennett.
Tony Bennett. You realize she can sing.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't
She's
obviously
very
I don't
well-
care for her politics, but she is actually like a phenomenal
She did a great
artist.
job.
Yeah,
Yeah, and actually,
in
up
that-
until
in that-
recently, I would say that her theatrics kind of upstaged her talent. Now that being said, would she have gotten noticed otherwise? Probably not.
But she writes her own stuff, doesn't she?
Oh yeah,
Yeah. See,
absolutely.
that's the thing. I mean, that's like, yeah.
Well, and that's the moneymaker too. So, Tyler,
Oh,
did you
yeah.
watch it?
Yeah.
I did watch part of it. I tuned in late, so I didn't see Lady Gaga or J Lo perform. Gaga. Sorry, pardon.
No.
So I
Right.
did. I was also working. So
How dare you.
I turned
Is it
it on in
Kamala
my office and,
or Kamala?
and listened a little bit.
Kamala.
I'm not going there.
Don't
Come
you
on.
know that it is
Racist.
It is obligatory as part of your universal basic income to not watch the inauguration.
Oh.
I don't know. I'm just making up.
Well, how many people watched
the
it? Do we
Democrats are
know?
doing now.
Do we know how many people
They're
watched
not going
it?
to release any of that information.
Because
No,
I thought
they-
I saw something where they said that more people watched it
They
than
did.
watched Trump's. And
They
I,
did.
And
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I found that kind of hard to believe, but
There are more
Doubtful.
flags.
They did,
in
and
the
a lot
yard.
more networks carried it, I think, than before. Which again, but
Okay.
again, who knows?
just to push the numbers up.
It's,
Man,
you know.
here's like we've always known that you have to kind of take some things from the media with a little bit of a grain of salt. You kind of have to consider the source type of thing. But it's to the point now to where anything you hear almost you have to immediately just
Fact
be like,
check.
yeah, okay, but what really happened?
Yeah.
right.
I mean that's pretty much
Yeah.
the way you have to be with everything
That's
from almost every source.
And that's just the new world that we're living in now.
You literally have to research the opposite to try to come to like what really happened.
Well, and that's the thing. To me, it's right up there with them saying that, Biden got the most votes of any president ever, and he's the most popular president of any president ever. Like, I think they're just doing anything they can to continue to just beat down on Trump. And same with the ratings. I mean, they're claiming that all these millions of people watched it. Meanwhile, it was like it's a weekday, like in
Right.
the middle of the day. When people are working.
Right.
And so I don't buy it, but
It's
whatever.
it's like the COVID. So I got into a discussion with somebody about the COVID tracker that was on CNN.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so CNN has the COVID tracker, which shows the cases and the deaths and all that, and that ran 24/7 on CNN.
Yes.
Okay, for the last year.
Right.
And when Biden got inaugurated,
down.
they took it down. Now what they did is they put it up if they're talking about COVID. So if the story is COVID, then they'll put that up there on the page, and then it comes down as soon as they move on. But that's not the way it was.
Are you telling me the media
And
is
so
trying
what
to
happened
manipulate
was
what's happening?
so Tucker Carlson. Well, this just goes to prove my point about you have to find out what really happened. So Tucker Carlson, of course it became. It went viral. Oh, look, they took the COVID tracker down now that Biden's in office. Now COVID's over, right? And so Tucker Carlson went with it. And so then CNN pushed back on Twitter, and they took all these screenshots of themselves, right? And were showing it saying, no, Tucker Carlson's lying. Fox News is lying. So then I went and looked, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. So here's all these screenshots of the trackers not there. Then here's all the screenshots that CNN gives you of it being there. And then that's when you realize, you're like, oh, wait a minute. Only when they're talking specific to COVID is it there, but CNN is misleading you.
Yeah.
And Fox News, I think, to a certain degree, is misleading in the sense that if they're saying if they're making you believe that it's all the time, it wasn't all the time down, but it's also not all the time up like it used to be. So the bottom line is that yes, they made a change. Yes, the COVID tracker's not up there like it used to be when Trump was in office, and they're not pushing all the hysteria like they used to be.
It shows it as an election issue. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Am I missing something? I'm looking in the comments that we were cutting you off. Were we cutting you off, Tyler?
No, not at all.
Okay,
I'm gonna automatically say we probably were, because that's what we do.
That's
here.
just what we do.
I'm the
so-
newbie.
you know,
I know.
Yeah.
No, you're not. Just get into it.
Trial by fire.
So Hector is saying that he listened to the inauguration on Sirius XM. Kim Davis went to lunch and got tipsy. We had other people that
I slept. I wasn't
that went to sleep to watch it. Holly is making comments that she is excited for the new Hunger Games 2021. So a lot of things were pretty exciting for it. I mean, I think Garth Brooks sang, and and then Katy Perry did something with fireworks, not coming out of her chest, but this time coming from behind like the Washington Memorial. So I mean, it was interesting. I saw like the day after, and it was fascinating to see.
What's hysterical to me though is something that came out, and again, I didn't watch it. I intentionally just avoided it, and but one of the things that I did catch was this, of course, the old Bible that Joe Biden got sworn in on, and it's this massive
The old
Bible,
school, yeah.
that apparently has been in his family for generations,
Like 1800 18 something.
Yeah, exactly. And funny enough, one of the things that it has is on the top, it has an old Celtic cross, okay, which has in many ways, just like the Hindu culture, it and how the swastika was taken from the Hindu culture, by Hitler. The old Celtic cross has actually been taken by a lot of white supremacy groups.
Has it really?
And yeah, and so I'm just thinking, if that would have happened under Trump's inauguration, it just everybody would have lost their mind.
They would have said that he picked it up at like Spencer's Gifts or something, and it was like, and that it was a replica, and it was a white power thing. Yeah,
Guys,
they would have said something crazy.
Guys, QAnon is great. Like this was probably on their website talking about the connection.
I can't keep up. I mean, it's like
Pizzagate.
You're making a symbol, and it's like, but I was just saying what's up, and it's like, no, that means insurrection. It's like, guys, I can't even keep up with like what the newest symbol is or whatever.
I'm not that in tune to pop culture to know what's going on at all.
Yeah, and what amuses me is watching some of the Democrats and those who are and aren't politically involved talk about the inauguration, and they're just so moved by it, and that they were crying by it, and and in fact, somebody who is high within the Florida Democrat Party was saying that it was the best inauguration ever, and I'm like, so 2008 never happened for you?
Yeah,
like
that wasn't historic.
It's
right. 2008
exactly.
wasn't historic.
And it's like somehow this one just meant something different.
I mean, they had Beyonce at 2008's inauguration. It was amazing.
Come on, there's nothing.
To see them.
There was nothing
At
historic
last.
about Biden's inauguration.
No,
and actually, the fact that nobody was there. I mean, honestly, it saves the guy.
Right.
I mean, he's got to be thankful.
I was expecting a
because how many people would have been
Washington.
there?
That's what I was.
Okay, we all if it wasn't for the protests that occurred, a week or two prior, there would have been more protesters at Biden's inauguration than supporters.
Absolutely,
there would have been Trump flags everywhere, and it would have been impossible for the media to pan back and show the mall. They couldn't have shown the National Mall, because if they would have done that, all you would have seen were Trump flags. So it was to his advantage that they were able to use COVID and then use the riots, or the whatever, the protest and riot that occurred at the Capitol. Which, oh, by the way, I just thought the whole National Guard thing was just lame.
You overblown.
Lame.
It was completely overblown.
So lame. I mean, I understand you do want to show up with some force, overwhelming force, to make sure that people are just like, all right, forget it. No, nothing's going to happen. But look, I mean, the FBI was like, oh, we have all this information. What happened?
Every
Nothing.
single capital.
Every capital is going to be under siege, and we've got to make. They had the entire Washington D.C. metro area almost blocked off. Yeah. So if anybody was actually going to come protest, you would have seen them coming like the day prior. I mean, you couldn't protest.
CNN did find one Trump supporter in the whole thing, and they interviewed him, and he's like, "Yeah, I voted for Trump, and I'm here because I want to see the inauguration." I'm like, "Dude, you did a great job, Hector."
I loved that video of that dude. I thought he was real.
Which there are people that genuinely, and don't get me wrong, like if someone would have given me tickets, I don't know that I would have turned it down because it's such it's an inauguration. It's a moment in history.
Yeah,
it's
sure.
like the Republican National Convention. I mean, like that only happens so many times in history, and to have just to say you've been there, I think supersedes partisan politics.
Hector, I apologize for not using the proper word for the QAnons, which is now the Q jobs. I apologize. We will be using that reference from now on.
I just feel my gripe about the soldiers as a former soldier myself is that they were used 360. Like the whole way around, the soldiers were used for props. First, they were used. Okay, I understand you need some security, but the Democrats are completely against walls until they need security. Then they brought in all these walls. Okay, fine. Then they brought in the soldiers to provide extra security. Okay, I got it. But then once you realize that there's literally no threat, like there's no one, it's a ghost town.
Yeah, right.
Why do you have all these people there? And to move on from that, then it becomes a show. And then you've got politicians going into the Capitol building, taking selfies with Joe Snuff, Private Joe Snuffy over here, taking selfies, posting it on their Facebook. Oh, so proud. Thank you for your service and all that. I mean, the whole time, soldiers, I just know they're sitting there, doing the whole getting ready to wait.
Right.
They have no idea what's going on. Yeah. No one's told them anything. They're just sitting there, and literally they're just like, when are we going to eat? Like,
this is cool.
And then they're taking.
So glad I came up here.
And then
are you enjoying the vacation?
Anticlimactic.
And then I won't go into the details of like how they get deployed and all that and paperwork, but then it's like I'm seeing pictures of these soldiers sleeping and their weapons are unsecured, and I'm like, this is not like is somebody in charge around here? I'm like, what's going on?
And if there was genuinely a threat, would that even be happening?
So again, as a veteran, all I saw in those pictures were unsecured sensitive items, unsecured weapons, no leadership present. I'm like, these soldiers have no idea what they're doing there. I mean, if you're pulling shifts, if you're sleeping because you're going to pull shifts or whatever, I get that. Have the guys that are sleeping out of the Capitol somewhere else. The guys that are in the Capitol need to be like on duty, looking professional. It was, and then when the Capitol Police come back in and they're like, hey guys, we're in session now. Like there's a lot of people here now, and we need you guys to kind of move out. We're gonna get you situated in the parking deck till we can figure something else out. Then that goes outrage.
Yeah, and then the Republican governors get really upset and call back the National Guards.
Well, I think somebody came out and was like, guys, they're staying in hotels and other locations. Some private complained about it, and like the media went crazy with it.
So Laura
and the governors removed their troops, which they should have done.
Yeah. So Laura is saying, "Yep, preach." Kimberly saying, "Live props that the military was being used as just propaganda." Others are talking about how they didn't have enough porta potties for the military people to come on. Ready for tomorrow? I have no idea what's happening tomorrow. Caesar,
I was going to ask Caesar what's happening.
Oh, because Hector was saying that I think it was Hector was saying that the papers have been turned over to the Senate for the impeachment.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Nothing's going to start.
Nothing. We will talk about that later. Let's continue moving on with the inauguration.
I have some breaking news from the inauguration.
Oh.
Okay. I got my hands on a copy of the letter tradition that Trump left in the Oval Office for Biden. I got my hands on a copy.
Yard sign exclusive.
I got my hands on a copy.
Oh, look at that! It's
gold
sealed
seal
and
here and everything.
Oh.
I think it simply said, "I'll be back."
Normally this doesn't get made public for quite some time. I'm going to go ahead and open this up. It's on nice presidential seal. You can see it right there. And it's just it's a one-liner. It says first it says the White House, Washington, 20th of January, 2021, and it says Joe, I won. Signed, Donald J. Trump.
I would have liked it if he would have said, "I'll be back."
I'll be back.
I'll be back.
I loved when Biden was asked about it about what was in the letter. He's like, well, I'll just say it was very generous.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't think I've ever heard anything Trump's done as being very generous.
Yeah, I know. I would love to see what he said in that letter.
It's a letter. Well, there's profanity all up in that thing.
Well, the people that have been around Trump, like a lot of politicians, who they are publicly, and half the country hates you just because you're an R or a D,
Right.
I mean, a lot of people say that in meetings, he's very calm and quiet and listens and likes to hear everybody else kind of go back and forth and hash out ideas and
yes, we all saw.
He's a very generous
We
guy.
all saw The Apprentice. We know how this works. I will say this.
That's once again for TV though. That's TV.
Odds are the letter that was really given to Joe Biden is probably less than 120 characters. So for him to get that,
Well, that's how many
there's nothing wrong with a
characters
short
he's used
letter.
to limiting
Well, yeah,
himself
sure.
to.
I mean, I think all the letters,
you
all
finish
the
it,
letters
read
from
it.
the presidents have been rather short, right? They've always been a little short. Like
get it done.
Because they're personal, and they're obviously kind of last minute, I would think. I mean, so all right. Thank you everybody for watching the Yard Sign. Don't forget you can subscribe on any of the.
Can you FOIA that letter?
It's a good question. I would think so.
I mean, it's an official. I mean,
Yeah.
No, but it's a letter from.
it's written by the president of the United States while in office.
I don't think it'd be marked
but it's
classified.
not
How
issued.
can you-
No,
yeah.
no. It's not issued. It's only left. I think that's where the roundabout.
It becomes a government document, does
the
it
government
not?
document is left in the what's it called? The cabinet of the.
Yeah, it's in the desk. Yeah, he lives in the desk.
Yeah,
never
but it's
leaves
not
the
issued.
desk.
Yes,
But the
it never
president
leaves the
doesn't.
desk.
Oh, you're okay. You're saying it never. It's not
It's
like
not- yeah, it's not
It
transition.
doesn't
not
even
like
leave the
it-
Oval Office.
Yeah, it's not like submitted by the White House.
Yeah,
Like it's not
if
an official.
So
letter.
like I use Post-its all the time when I'm in my office, and if the president writes something on a Post-it, is
that wouldn't
then,
be a public document.
Yeah, it
Okay, I
wouldn't be a
got you.
public
I
document.
got you. I was just curious. I mean, it's on. I was just curious.
knows?
Yeah.
So when you become mayor, how will
Yeah.
you be governing?
Will you get a letter? Yeah.
Well,
Will you get a
anything
letter?
I wrote on a post-it note during a meeting is public record.
Oh yeah.
Will you get a letter? Hey, you young whippersnapper.
Well, we don't even have a
You know-
desk at City Hall, so
There you go.
Wow.
You shouldn't. The mayor ought to have to stand up and do their meetings. That would keep it short.
Yeah. All right. Hey, thank you so much for watching the Yard Sign. Jonny Torres, your host with us tonight. Joe Wicker, commissioner from the city of Treasure Island, Tyler Payne, and Anibal, David Cabrera. We hope you're enjoying the show. Don't forget, you can subscribe to the show at any of our tech overlords at Apple, Spotify, Google, Audible, and Amazon. Now all carrying podcasts. And actually, we are going to be experimenting with bringing you the show live on Clubhouse as well. So stay tuned to that. And again, for hopefully more news about growing the show in the coming weeks.
Executive orders.
Yeah, that's right. We're going into executive orders now. With now the count being, I think, at around 27. And, again, as I tend to do, I put stuff like this on my Facebook page, and I had a reporter from a local TV station, I'm not going to name names, say, well, what was so offensive about the 27 executive orders? What because of course, I said, yeah, well, so much for unity, because a lot of these executive orders are taking aim at Trump's policies. And in fact, they've put a hold on anything that hadn't gone into effect already. They've put that into a 60-day hold. One of those being like insulin and other medicine prices that were supposed to go down. And so let's go ahead and get into that. Executive orders. Anibal, do you want to kind of give us a rundown of what they were? Do you have that in front of you?
I do have that in front of me right now. So at the moment, there has been between 22 and 27 executive orders, a lot of them ranging from stopping certain actions to getting done for the 2021 election cycle. A few of them that were of interesting was a new head of COVID-19 task force, a new federal property mask mandate, a 100 mask challenge, not mandate, but challenge for 100 days of mask wearing, which the last 360 days of mask mandates wasn't a thing. The re-entrance of the WHO, the creation of the COVID Health Equity Task Force. I don't know what any of those words mean. The pledge to give out vaccines to over 100 million people. A review of DACA, end of the building of the wall, the so-called Muslim ban, ending that. Big ones that people are really upset about is re-entering of the Paris Climate Pact and the
Accord.
cancellation of the
Keystone
Pipeline, which is really pissing off a lot of people right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that one, and somewhere in there, wasn't there the one about the men being allowed to compete in women's sports?
So
Oh, yeah.
the transgender individuals are now allowed to be fully in the military, which that's also very
That's the
misleading.
military, though.
That's misleading also.
It was a
because,
transgender ban on the military.
Yeah, and then illegal immigration policy changes that will be delayed for 100 days. Putting pauses in evictions and student loan payments, blocking drilling in Anwar, which is not a thing anymore because the the federal government has to allow drilling in Anwar because it was passed in the last stimulus package. So he can't do that. That already got overthrown. And then overtook. There was a revoking the 1776 commission, and then the overturn of the opposition of teaching federal employees critical race theory at work.
Wow. So the one that kind of seems really silly to me is not just like the Keystone Pipeline thing, but the wall. Okay, the wall was already funded,
Correct.
already being built. You're only stopping it for purely political reasons.
Correct.
Absolutely.
It's not like you have to get the bill through Congress. It's not like you have to, the work is already done. It's already slated. People are just rolling.
And now it's just going to sit there.
And they're just gonna
4
stop just
8
because.
years until
Yeah.
it
Just because.
gets picked back up by another
I
president.
don't know what percentage of the wall has been completed. I think a pretty
lot of
decent
it.
I thought it
amount
was
of
like 400 something miles.
Yeah, a good
something.
number of it was complete. Why are you looking at the Hispanic?
Which
Because you're
one?
talking. Because you were talking.
Kind of how this conversation thing works a little bit.
Triggered. I felt triggered.
You got a guilty conscience or something? I mean, I heard there was a caravan coming. I mean, what are you saying?
That Guatemala is
saying?
doing its job and making sure.
Do you
they
have a
don't
problem with the
overdo
wall,
it.
Anibal?
I have a huge problem. By the time I could bid for my part of the wall, it was already too late.
The insulin thing is kind of weird to me, right? Because Trump had that was an interesting move. That was one of those moves that Trump made that was not a very Republican thing, and he didn't get any credit for it.
Right.
Because you constantly hear about, insulin, a person shouldn't have to pay $100, for their insulin and this, right? And there's all these different types of insulin, right? Like not everybody can get the cheap kind or whatever. And Trump actually did something about that and said, hey, listen, whatever discounts you're passing along have to be passed along to the consumer. He actually stepped in and did something that I don't care what your politics are.
Yep.
How do you have a problem with that?
Yeah.
Like you literally have to be on the corporate board of a pharmaceutical company to disagree with what Trump did. And he got no credit for it. And one of the first things Biden does is turn that around. Like, that's wild.
But it's not a real turnaround, I think. Were you going to get into this one?
Go ahead.
Yeah, jump in. It wasn't really a turnaround. So a lot of things that occur when it comes to the orders that were done for the medical reasons are just a 60-day hiatus. So it's not that he stopped it or reversed it. He just paused it.
You're saying Biden did?
Biden paused it. And it's because it was too close to the transitional time of the new administration.
So you're saying he signed an executive order that just stops the implementation of that particular executive order for the next 60 days?
Yeah, I had to do a lot of research to figure out where was it, because was he doing it because he was against it? I didn't find any verbiage on that. I did find a huge article on the government website, not even a big news agency, that talked about how, and correct me if I'm wrong, anyone online, about how this is actually kind of a normal thing, that things that are done like
in the last 6 months,
are reviewed during that time.
Did you see the video? And I watched it a couple times, and I mean, it definitely sounded like that. Did you see the video where he's signing and he's mic'd up? Or he's not mic'd up, but there must be a boom mic or something real close by, and you hear him, he's like, I don't even know what I'm signing here. Did you see it? You didn't see that?
I heard about it, but I didn't see the video.
Yeah, watch it. It's either Biden straight up, he gets it, they hand it to him, and he's like, I don't even know what I'm signing here.
Yeah, but Kamala probably read all of them. She knows exactly what's going on.
He just signs it.
Where's my Jello?
We did it, Joe.
And look, I'm not trying to get into the whole, dementia, conspiracy. I don't want to pick on the guy like that, but I mean, that's just not what you want to hear from the president. Like, I don't know what I'm signing, and then you sign something. Like, that's just not what you want to hear.
Or there was the other video, which again, not sure how accurate it is, but they show him walking into, I believe it's the White House, and there's 2 Marines standing at the door. And as he's walking in, he says, "Salute the Marines," or "Salute the soldiers," or something like that. But he doesn't do it. Like, he's repeating, like stuff that's
someone's talking to him.
Yeah,
like he's got an earpiece.
Yeah, like that, or like they were telling him like stuff that he has to be doing, and like the cue went off but he just didn't do it.
So was it him that repeat? Was it him that said
he
that?
said salute the soldiers, and then he
So who would say that to yourself and then not do it?
Well, again, I think he's trying to trigger, like, remind himself things that
guys.
Who would have thought the Manchurian candidate would be 87 years old?
What is China thinking? I mean, like, are they watching this? Are they watching it? And they're like, you know what? Go ahead, send those ships. Yeah, take those other islands. Nobody's paying attention right now.
Just because they're not going to
take those other islands. Nobody's paying attention.
Nobody's going to pay attention. I don't think this administration is going to pay attention to anything happening overseas.
I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of stuff is happening over the Taiwanese Strait with China throwing.
Oh, of course, things are happening
over this weekend.
But they know they're going to get away with it.
Something
because
that people are not talking about are the $12 billion worth of grain that went defunct in China. So they don't even have enough grain to feed their own people at the moment.
All right,
it's
well, I thought they were buying. Didn't they restore that contract? For all the
they had
soy,
to
the
because
grain,
they weren't able to produce enough.
Well, we don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but Anibal makes some. You make some good points about China being weaker than people think they are. Okay, people think China is this massive threat to us militarily and economically, and they're really not. Okay, but they are communist countries that become wealthy, and the more money they get, they tend to spend it on arms. And as they become bigger and stronger and more wealthy, they tend to become more aggressive to their neighbors. And that's what we see happening. And so also, when regimes are in trouble internally,
they lash out.
They will lash out and do things like that. And at least under Trump, because
it justifies everything else they're doing.
Well, right, and it's not justification. It's easier to get the country that you're being a dictator with to focus on something that's exterior and raw unity inside the country. The reason why China has border disputes with 14 other countries is because they're desperately trying to keep the country unified. So they're making enemies from everyone outside of the country.
You have to, because that's the way you keep people, fired up and keep them in line.
You have skirmishes over last week with another Indian province again, where there were casualties. You have huge issues that are happening in the first archipelago of the China Sea, and then they're pissing off the Russians. Again, this is all because China internally is having huge problems.
But that's what they're saying now, let's say, to kind of bring it home. That's what they're saying about Trump. Now that Trump's out of the picture, right? Not that Trump's going to go silently into the night, because we know he won't do that. No. But now there's this vacuum where there used to be, let's say for the Democrats, a villain, right? Now there's this vacuum, and it's like, well, who do they have to fight against? You know what I mean?
Well, now they're talking about the proposed impeachment. That gives them something to talk about for the next however many weeks, which
let's keep
is not on our list.
No, we can add it on, but let's talk.
Okay, but back to the executive orders. Well, okay, so again, go ahead, Tyler.
Hector brings up a good point, and that's what I was going to say was the executive orders, and I think I saw a statistic like the number that he signed into law on his first day, or more than all three of the past presidents for their first short period of time. But it's just crazy that our Congress can't get anything done, and he has to, regardless of what side of the aisle you're on. Sad that.
Well, I think that's why you're seeing more and more executive orders.
And I'll be curious if it's going to be a pattern moving forward, regardless of party.
Well, when Congress can't pass laws, I think part of what the reason why you see increased numbers of executive orders is because you see a decreased amount of the ability of Congress to pass legislation. They can't even pass a budget.
Yeah, but and I agree with that. A lot of these executive orders that were passed are really nothing. A lot of them have to do with COVID. A lot of them
federal
have to do
employees federal employees.
And then you had the Keystone Pipeline, which I understand that people are they don't know what they're talking about when they argue for or against it. But the argument against Keystone Pipeline is so stupid because we don't want that kind of bad oil. And we saw this on Facebook a few days ago. We shouldn't have that oil refined in the United States. The oil is already coming. It's just going to come on a barge or on a train, which is
riskier.
It's so hypocritical for the Democrats that
but it's riskier
environmentally conscious. You're taking trucks off the road. Like why stop that?
Well, with a pipeline too, you can shut a pipeline off. You can stop a pipeline, and that's it. So if you ever have a problem, you shut it down and then you fix it. But with a tanker, obviously,
we're all worried about jobs during COVID, and that you just
Well, and they're
away
trying to
jobs
make
from
a
tons of
case that,
people working on
it's
the
Native
pipeline.
American land.
Well, Paul
and,
Phillips was making the argument that it was a
instances.
private property issue. It was an issue of the government's ability to just confiscate private property, and Paul Phillips started making that argument. And that's fine if that's the issue. But I guess my question is, well, since when have Democrats ever cared about private property rights?
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, if that's the argument being made, hey, let's roll. Let's take it
I
to the
wanna
courts
see that
then. Let's
Supreme
go all the
Court.
way up to the top. That's
Also,
great. Sure.
on his first day, I think he got rid of 30 or 40,000 jobs because
Yeah.
of executive orders that he
crazy.
committed, which is insane.
That's crazy. Wow.
And these are union-paying jobs.
Well, and that's
Yeah.
what I'm wondering is like, I hope all these union workers that voted for him are waking up and being like, oh shit, we made the wrong choice.
Oh yeah, they're only going to be concerned if they're getting rid of lawyers or something like that when it comes to Washington D.C. They're so focused on the white collar and everything else, they don't even think about blue collar jobs. And Pete Buttigieg is so he
You
pissed me off.
mispronounced his last name.
Buttigieg.
Buttigieg.
Boot edge.
Buddha something.
Oh, it's Buttigieg?
It's
Buttigieg.
edge.
Edge.
Well,
Boot
you know,
edge.
and I
To
want to address...
finish-
and
To
I-
finish my
Buttigieg.
point, I
No.
want to say that I'm very. He was very smug when he talked about 30,000 jobs being erased. He said, "Oh, they'll find other jobs somewhere else." I'm like, in the middle of a pandemic, you're talking
Right.
about other people's jobs, and you're just so
But that's the way politicians think. That they don't.
and they'll get away with it. And he
and
gets
they'll
away
get
with
away
that.
with it.
You
And
know,
the
but
thing
had
is,
Trump had that level of apathy for the American worker, that sound clip would be running for the next 6 months.
And it's an environment, and it's these wacky environmentalists out on the east and west coast that are going to be talking about this thing, that are advocating for it, and it's not even happening in their backyard.
Nope.
It's not even their job. It's
Right.
not happening there.
Yeah,
Was it the
but they
pro-
think that they're saving the planet in the process.
They probably don't even know where the pipeline goes.
Did you see
No,
where?
they
Did
don't.
you
They
see
don't know
where?
where
Did
they're-
you see where?
You know it's bad when even Trudeau, comes out and says,
Yeah.
"Dude, what are you doing?"
Oh,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
to talk
yeah,
about
yeah.
that, Canada is actually going to have to sue the United States.
Yeah, they are. They're
because of
suing,
it.
yeah.
And Texas is going to have to sue
Yeah,
it
they're
also
both
because
suing.
over $1 billion has been spent from the Canadian side because they thought this was already a done deal. Of
course.
Also,
Right, yeah.
Something that people forget all the time, the project has
what
been
happens.
evaluated by the Obama administration for impact on the environment 5 times already from the State Department and have not been able to find any increase in environmental impact with the building of the pipeline. This is a pure political act,
Yeah.
which he did on day one.
I remember when they were talking about pipelines, I think like in Alaska or something, everybody was talking about how it's going to destroy the environment. And then later they found out that like caribou were like snuggling up to the pipe because it was warm and like they were like procreating, they're like, hey, this is where to hang out. And they're like, like the population's increasing. I mean, so I don't know. Man. It's
Well,
crazy.
and I want to address this because Kimberly made a good point in the comments. Her having 3 girls, myself having a little girl. Joe, you have a little girl, right? And,
Yep, 2.
And
Just because I don't got kids, we gotta.
same.
no, but it's leading up to the point that when it talks about the integration of transgendered kids into sports, whether it be on the boys' side or on the girls' side, okay? Because again, the potential issues there are equal. Again, there's a major problem, and there's going to be some major consequences that are going to come from that. Because it starts off they can play on the same team, and then they're on the same team, so they got to use the same locker rooms, and again, like especially at that young age where they haven't even figured out who they are, and they're still developing and they're still figuring out their feelings, and again, like why are we putting this on children?
And
Now,
everybody knows. See, the thing that gets me about stuff like that is that everyone really understands that this is foolishness. Like by and large,
right.
people pretty much get that this is foolishness. That
Professional
biological
athletes have
boys
already come out
should
against
not,
it,
yeah,
right.
biological males should not compete against biological
Right.
females.
Billie
period.
Jean King, a professional women's tennis player, maybe the greatest female tennis player
Right.
after, let's say, maybe Serena Williams,
Right.
came out and said, this is wrong. You have it happening in UFC where you had men that came in and tried to hide the fact that they were men and wanted to go ahead and and fight as women so that they could go ahead and win these titles
just
and win
dominate.
sponsorships
Yeah.
and win a lot of money. And they were, I mean, it's bad enough how physical that sport is, but they were really doing some serious damage to some of these opponents.
The amount of mental gymnastics that you have to be to support feminism, but still allow for transgender men to be able to participate
anti-woman.
in female.
It's anti-woman.
I never thought the Republicans would be the ones that are really fighting this point.
Well, and
where
also
it's unfair. You're taking scholarships from girls that have been training their whole lives to compete with other girls.
I mean, what happens if it becomes popular? Like, what happens if the stigma around it is literally like it just vanishes, and young men are like, they're in track or whatever, and they're not going to get a scholarship. Period. They're just not, and they're like, forget it. I'm going to go play on the women's team. And now I'm the fastest person on the team.
Yeah.
And now I'm NCAA,
it's not
scholarship material. Like, this is foolish, which means you're
fun.
harming a woman who's deserving. It's foolishness, and everybody knows that it is.
Bro, we know people that have changed birth certificates to make sure their kids get to play in Pee Wee football. We've known people to like rent out condos in Davis Island.
So
their
you're
kids
saying it'll happen?
Can go to plant.
So you're saying it'll happen?
The extent of things
Eventually
that
it'll
parents
happen.
will
do for sports.
Well,
People
what if
exactly.
what if the college is $100,000 a year and you actually get in once this starts happening? Not $100,000 a year. I'm sorry,
who is paying
$100,000 education at some university that's got a great whatever lacrosse team or something. I mean, come on.
But that's what I'm saying. What is bad when professional athletes will come out and tell you, okay, because Serena said basically the same thing, and she got a lot of flack for it as well. She says, on my best day, I could not beat the best men's tennis player.
Right, it's just fact.
It's physiology, and again, this coming from the party of science, and now that what is it, Health and Human Services being run by a transgender woman? It's like I thought they were the party of science.
Yeah,
it's not the main person, but it's like an undersection.
She's like the second. She's like second. No,
there's no perfect solution because ideally they could play sports somewhere, but it just doesn't.
Well, the problem is that it's anti-woman. Where does the woman compete? If you're a young girl and you want, where do they get to compete? Because then they find themselves competing against men and men. Like they can't compete against the men, so then they compete with themselves, but then the men get to compete there too. I mean, that's the problem. This was my argument with the bathrooms and the locker rooms was this, is that when you allow a man, biological male, to come into that environment that's all female, then the females lose what they had. The males still have their organization, but now the females lose their organization.
Right.
And so now they don't have one, and that's anti-woman.
Well, you saw that happening during the Girl Scouts and the Boy Scouts. That the Boy Scouts were being forced to let girls get integrated into this organization.
Right.
And the Girl Scouts were like, no, we don't like boys. Well, literally, their comment was like, boys are icky. And that's what their Twitter account said.
A lot of
and I thought that was ingenious because you're taking away from the idea of having these organizations.
But these liberal groups allowed, the Boy Scouts allowed themselves to be pinholed by these liberal groups by being hateful towards women for not allowing women to join their organization. When, again, it's designed to be Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts for a reason, for developmental reasons.
So I asked a woman that I grew up with who was big into Girl Scouts or whatever. I asked, she was like supportive of that, of the girls being able to join the Boy Scouts. And I asked her about that. I was like, why? And her thing was she said, well, because she grew up kind of like a tomboy. And her thing was that the Boy Scouts got to do like the fun stuff this is her words, right? Yeah. They got to go do that stuff, and the Girl Scouts didn't get to do those activities. So she's like, we want to do some of the same things that the boys are. Okay,
so then
I got that.
Another organization that does the fun stuff for both.
Right. I mean, I totally get that. You want to go camping, the boys are camping, the girls want to go camping. Like, I got that. But my thing to her was like, well, then why don't you petition within your own organization? Correct. Go do those things. Correct. Like, why don't y'all go do it?
Yeah.
Why do you have to
wait? For some reason, they wait a lot longer. And my sister and my cousins were all Girl Scouts. And for some reason, they wait a lot longer to go out and do camping and do all those sort of things that they like to do. And in fact, they left the Girl Scout organization and basically formed like a little unofficial organization where there was probably about a half dozen of them, and they would go camping and fishing and all this kind of stuff. They didn't go try to join the Boy Scouts. They just went and did all the cool stuff that they thought the Boy Scouts were doing on their own.
I mean, this just proves that boys can do things better than girls.
I mean,
that's what you're proving.
Well,
that's what you're showing.
I mean, they could even do it sort of together, though, right? Like they could even sort of, organize these types of events together. But I just, I don't.
Where there's some division where there needs to be.
The argument wasn't that she wanted to be a Boy Scout. The argument was that she wanted to do the activities that the Boy Scouts are doing. I'm like, that's fine. Then do those activities within the organization of Girl Scouts.
Anything you can do, I can do better.
I mean, if a boy wants to sell cookies, do they have to join Girl Scouts to sell cookies?
What do Boy Scouts sell?
I think it's popcorn or something.
Yeah.
No,
But that's fairly new. That's fairly
Nobody
new.
knows
That's
about
not
that.
the Boy Scouts for years.
They
Didn't
got
have
it on
any.
the hustle.
They
They
didn't
had
have
to get in
anything.
on that
No,
hustle.
like I was, I was a Boy Scout for a few years, and like
Shocking.
we didn't have like that signature thing that we did every year. So we had to do like car washes, and we sold like chocolate bars, and like whatever your troop could come up with, because we didn't have that signature item. But that the whole cookie thing is also a huge.
I don't really
that-
care who sells me the Girl Scout cookies. I'm gonna buy them.
Yeah.
Girl or
Yeah,
boy.
those things are
What's
like
gonna
those
happen?
things are a racket. They come through your office and it's like, you want any? You're like, no. And they're like, you sure? You're like, yeah, I want 10 boxes.
It's legit, and then you freeze them, and you can make. Oh my gosh, it was insane. The racket that they got on my family every year we'd buy.
I haven't had dinner yet. We need to stop
I
talking
know.
about.
All right, let's
Girl
move on to the
Scouts.
next topic. But needless to say, there's lots of executive orders to be picked apart there.
Laura said
and
Girl Scouts are selling
far-
digitally.
Far from unifying. Oh yeah, you can buy them
What?
online and
That's
stuff.
dangerous. That's dangerous.
Well, because now like Publix,
Are
I
they in
think
Whole Foods?
all
Like,
these
they
places
just ship it?
they didn't.
when was the
Amazon?
last time you went to Whole Foods?
No, for real. Why wouldn't they just go straight to Amazon, right?
Well, they didn't allow them to do the
Okay.
storefront selling anymore because of COVID and stuff. And so,
okay.
so they had to, I guess, look for other ways to allow them to sell.
Allow for cholesterol levels to increase. Yes.
Yeah. Luckily, there's only like one set of those cookies that I even like. So
Kimberly
I'm in
Davis
the clear
says they
there.
do camp. Like the Girl
Yeah,
Scouts.
they do,
They
but
do
it's
now.
but it's later. Like they start like I think the difference is actually about 5 years. Like from when boys start camping and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts start camping, I think there's a huge gap there as to when organizationally they start doing that.
I don't know. If anything,
it's
we
not at
should
the same
just-
time.
We should just go back to television and watch what they did at Beverly Hills Troop and the movie from the 1980s and see how that worked out. I thought it worked out great. They camped and everything.
All right, so this is going to be kind of a short topic because, and again, thank you for watching The Yard Sign, the most important and relevant podcast in politics. Again, Joe Wicker, Tyler Payne, who's running for mayor of Treasure Island, Anibal Cabrera joining us tonight, and Biden, who had been hyping up this, speaking of anything you can do, I can do better. I mean, he said that he had this amazing vaccine plan, that he was going to tackle this coronavirus, and we were going to knock this sucker out. And now anybody that asks him about the plan or any details about the plan gets like a harsh response from him, including actually a guy I know.
Come on, man. Give me a
Zeke
break.
Miller. Yeah. Zeke
me a
Miller,
break.
who I actually got to meet in 2012. He was working for BuzzFeed at the time, and asked him in the Oval Office, something about the number of vaccines or something like that. And he's like, oh, you just like you say, he's like, oh, get off my back, man, or something like that.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
just gave him like this horrible, response, which again, everybody kind of shrugs their shoulder at, because he's not Donald Trump. And so, the big question is, where is Biden's vaccine plan?
He can't answer the questions. I mean, what I saw, I think it was today.
Well, aside from the fact
Somebody
that,
was
let's be
asking
honest,
me,
there probably
he
isn't
can't-
one.
Well, it's, I'm gonna try to be consistent here. Remember when Republicans bashed Obamacare for 7 straight years,
Right,
and then when they
nothing.
took over Congress, they had, it was like, where's the plan? And it was like, oh yeah, we were just against Obamacare. We didn't really have the world realized that nobody within the Republican Party in Congress had even been working on something.
Right.
There was no legislation to propose. There was nothing.
No,
And
it was just
kind of
rhetoric. It was just like
just
we'll
rhetoric.
do it better.
It was just rhetoric against the election, and
Yeah.
that it was just election rhetoric, right? A lot of times, people like to run on issues; they don't necessarily like to solve them.
Do anything about
and
it, yeah.
and that's what the Democrats ran on. They said that Trump was doing a disastrous job with COVID response, and that they have a plan. And now here they are, and there is no plan.
And
and
how
Biden
sad
said
when
that
you
he
have
couldn't do
Ron
anything.
DeSantis saying we just need more vaccines. We'll get them out. We just need more.
Yeah.
So.
What's happening in your part what's happening in your city right now when it comes to distribution? Because I know you guys have a much larger.
We have an older population, and I think even in Pinellas County as a whole, it's just that same thing. We got people that are just lining up ready to take it, and they just can't.
Now, Walgreens and CVS, are they distroing it now? Or
I think Public in Florida, they're doing it through Publix pharmacies. I keep seeing DeSantis posting about opening new Publix pharmacies.
Well, I saw that. I think so. Walgreens and CVS, I think, I think they're responsible for the distribution to the long-term care facilities and the skilled nursing facilities. So I believe I saw where they said that was complete or nearly complete in Florida. Like all of the skilled nursing.
I know that we're on pace to
nursing homes were done.
I think right now we're doing 1 million vaccines a day in the country,
which is not enough.
Which is not enough. And
not nearly enough.
But Ron DeSantis said in an interview, he's like, if you gave me an extra 1 million vaccines,
we could get them.
I can knock them out. Yeah, we'd get it done.
We have the facility.
So right now we're only being limited by what
supply.
we're getting.
By supply.
Now people are arguing from Moderna and from Pfizer, talking about how there's an extra dose inside every single vial. It's getting into the minutia what's happening now. However,
I've heard that debunked.
Something that was happening over the weekend that actually Dr. Fauci had to push back against was that CNN and MSNBC was talking about how there was no plan when the Biden administration came into the White House. There was no plan for distribution of the vaccine. And Dr. Fauci had to say, no, that's not true. Of course there's a plan. Of course there was operations going on. We're giving out millions of these things. Of course there's a plan from the White House. So he was able to do a strike and ball situation where he was calling out the media for not telling the full truth of what was happening with the transition. But something that Biden said a few days ago was talking about how what did he say? There's nothing that we can do about the COVID trajectory at the moment. He said that
for months to come.
Yeah, for months to come, and that threw everyone off because we thought you had a plan coming in here to do more and to distribute more, but this is just the normal trajectory of what the Trump administration.
Well, and talking about Fauci, the big
hypocrisy.
The storyline with Fauci is that now he's released, he's free, and he can say whatever he wants because he's not under the thumbprint of the Trump administration, who apparently I guess was limiting what he could and couldn't say, and he doesn't have a plan either. Like, I think if we would have heard about a plan, it would have come from him, or at least elements of it, or said, hey, we got a plan we're about to announce or something. Nothing. Like, basically, all he came out and said, because let's remember, CNN tried to say that there was no plan put out by the Trump administration.
Correct.
Operation Warp Speed was the plan, okay, but all of a sudden they have, amnesia. And then Fauci said, no, we're actually starting from where we left off. Like, he developed that plan.
Yeah, he can't. What's he going to do? Blame himself?
Yeah, exactly.
Come on
like,
now.
he developed Operation Warp Speed, and the vaccine distribution plan. And so he says, no, we're actually kind of picking up from where we left off from that. And so what that tells me, as honestly, is that they can't come up with anything better.
Tyler,
they've thought this through, and given all the bureaucracy and given all the logistics, this is as good as they're going to do, and I don't think they want to admit that.
Tyler, how are you guys doing with the mask wearing and stuff? Like, is your community basically kind of bought in? Because I keep hearing all this stuff about masks, and I'm like, everywhere I go, people are wearing masks. I don't understand. I mean, it seems like there's plenty of buy-in.
Well, and that's the word that just keeps popping in my head is hypocrisy, and I think masks is a great example. It's just the restaurant situation when you come in and you have to wear a mask to sit down, but then you take it off, and it's just nothing makes sense. And so I've been out on the campaign trail, and just today I had my brother was out doing door hangers, and he's not even knocking on doors, he's just dropping it.
Right.
And some guy yells at him on the street and says, "Where's your mask?" He's like, I'm not even getting close to anyone. So
right.
No, I'm walking down the street. I'm not wearing a mask. If you go up to a door, you do it. I think by and large, at the local level, it's been really, people are cooperative, but just when it comes down to those common sense things like, okay, I have to wear it to walk through the restaurant, but not when I
Do you see
sit
seniors
down.
wearing their masks, or do you see them any of them not? I mean, like, is it a problem?
Yeah, and I think it comes down to an individual decision. If you don't want to be, I had someone complain that my campaign flyer for a coffee event I'm going to do didn't have a disclosure about masks and social distancing. I'm like, if you don't want to be there, then don't come. Like if you
Well, no, honestly,
Yeah.
not
this
exposing you to anything,
That's a
just
new
don't be there.
this isn't
I'll
a
engage with
disclosure
you
that
on a
needs to be-
different platform. I'll have a
We're
conversation
also
with
not
you on
30
Facebook.
days into this. We are now almost fully a year into this. If you're comfortable wearing a mask, then you wear a mask. If you're not comfortable wearing a mask, don't wear a mask. There's now people with the vaccine. So like, if you've had the dosage, do you still wear a mask even though you've already received the dosage? Like,
And that's not to say
does
that,
that
I mean,
look?
I've the whole time I've been kind of middle of the road of do masks work or not. I have a company. We have 100 employees that are all in close quarters manufacturing eyeglass lenses. They all wear a mask all day long because that's just a simple thing that you can do to, if it works, great. If it doesn't, I mean, at least we did something, and we've had really good success, and we've had minimal COVID exposure. So
Yeah, look, like for me, using the restaurant example, I wear it when I come in just so they don't give me a hard time when, I want to get in and I want to get sat, and then I go ahead and take it off. But on the way out, it's like I'm already leaving the restaurant. What are you going to do?
What are you going to do? You going to kick me out?
So it's like, and I'm not stopping, I'm not stopping to talk to anybody. I'm literally, in transit on the way out, back out to my car.
Remember, Fauci said you don't have to wear a mask, and then said you do.
Well, and then you mentioned the vaccine. Like, what's next? What, as an employer, how do I handle? We haven't even crossed that bridge yet. When people start getting vaccinated, are they allowed to stop wearing their mask?
Yeah.
And then do you have a little gold star that you wear to say that you have a vaccine?
No, you
Like,
wear
what do you-
the pendant from Hunger Games.
Oh yeah,
and
Lady
that says
Gaga.
that
She
just
must
think
have got the vaccine.
that-
That's
yeah,
why she was
I
wearing
just
it.
think
the
what's been
Gaga vaccine. Yeah.
to me the most unfortunate thing about this whole ordeal is that the American people and people all over the world are going to come away from this with less trust in both government and the scientific community because the government is doing whatever they can do, just CYA, without any common sense.
Yeah.
Okay. And then on the scientific side, the medical community, not really the actual clinicians. It's the academics, it's the bureaucrats, it's the people like Fauci, who, yes, he's a doctor, yes, this is his lane, but he hasn't touched a patient in 30 years. Type of. I mean, you have these people that they just can't say they don't know. The media asks them a question, and they always have to have an answer. When a lot of times the answer is we just don't know. But they can't bring themselves to admit that they don't know. And so then when they say something and it turns out not to be true and you question them, then they're like, well, wait a minute, that was the best science we had at the time, and now we have different science. And it's like, well, wait a minute, so what you're telling me is that you're always right? Like, whatever you say is always right because that's what you think.
Who would have known?
Why can't you just say you don't know?
Who would have known we would find another industry where you could? It's like a weatherman. You can be
Consistently wrong
all the time.
Consistently
a
wrong.
pollster. You can be consistently wrong and you still have a job. I think the biggest thing that turned the public away from science and away from the doctors, the medical community in regards to this, was when the riots and the marches started happening over the summer.
Right.
And then you had pundits on CNN and MSNBC
that's okay.
and
Doesn't
talking
spread.
about how that it's perfectly it's legit. You're allowed to go marching even though we don't know what
They're
this looks
outside,
like.
though.
They're outside, though.
And then they
Oh
even
my gosh.
then here's what really like puts the nail in the coffin. When they start producing bunk science where they say, oh, we did contact tracing and there were no infections as a result of the BLM riot or the Antifa riot. There were no infections, but the Trump rally, it was crazy. There were all these people, super spreader event, and it's like, come on, guys, like you don't have to be a clinician or even really have a degree in you don't even have to you could have made it through 8th grade biology and that two massive events are probably going to be likely the same.
And what's hysterical about that is that if you go into the data that was put out by California, by Portland, Oregon, if you look into these hot spots where they had the riots, okay, exactly 2 weeks after the riots, there was a spike in cases. And it's like, how again, do you want us to trust the science or not? Because your data is telling me that something before that spike happened that was a super spreader event, but you're telling me that these protests had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
Or they keep saying like, in 2 weeks you'll see the deaths will spike. In 2 weeks. And it kept being in 2 weeks.
Right.
In 2 weeks, it's going to be bad. In 2 weeks, it's going to be bad because...
But you never heard the flip side of, 2 weeks ago, this happened, and now that's why it's really
Laura's asking, she's saying, when will my contact tracing stop? My understanding is that contact tracing, they kind of gave up on it.
Oh, I had COVID in I got it Halloween time, and the person from the Department of Health didn't call me until 2 weeks later. Like, what? So it's too late for contact tracing.
We were
at
never
that point.
when we got it.
Oh, you didn't get your results, you mean, for 2 weeks?
No, I got my results. The person from the Department of Health to do the contact tracing called
Oh,
me
right,
2
to
weeks
find out.
later.
Oh, by then it's too late. It doesn't matter.
They all already have
well,
COVID
once
at this
and
point.
the thing, my understanding from the contact tracing is that once it reaches that community spread level, like it's at that point it does like it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
You can't because you're doing contact tracing because you're trying to contain it.
Well, they don't
trying
have
to
the
capture all those
infrastructure.
people.
They don't have the infrastructure to be able to actually do contact tracing.
I think there was some. I think there's still contact tracing occurring in some cities. I don't think Florida ever did.
Well, and then
a
Americans
full
are just
thing.
straight up not gonna tell you. Like
No.
somebody, so the government
Why
comes,
would we?
we're here to help you. Just want to know where have you been, who have you talked to, where have
Yeah.
you, can I see your phone,
Yeah,
please?
that
Can you
works-
unlock it for me?
That works in
Americans are like,
that works
I'm not
in
telling you
California,
anything.
New York. That's not working
Yeah.
anywhere south of the Mason-Dixon line.
Yeah, Kimberly's saying that the new spokeswoman for the White House, Psaki, is saying that DeSantis is sitting on half the doses he was given. I don't buy that for a minute. Now, may they be releasing
that the
them
second?
strategically?
Yeah, that's
Whoa,
what I was
whoa,
gonna
whoa,
say.
is that the second dose though?
Who knows?
Is because then that
would be half.
that goes back. That goes back to what I was saying in the beginning. Things that are like half true. So that could be half true. He's sitting on half the doses. Well, maybe that's because those are the secondary doses, and you're not supposed to be giving away somebody else's second
Guys,
dose.
the new secretary, the new press secretary has already said that she will be completely transparent and will be
I'm
completely
sure.
honest to the American people.
That goes against her job description.
You are literally the propaganda machine
Yeah,
for
her
the
job description
administration.
is to not, you know.
That's what I loved about McEnany is that she would call these reporters out on their bullshit. Time
She would
and time
have
again.
tabbed. She had a thing, and it was
oh my
like
god,
tabs.
it was.
I loved it.
It was
And
almost as thick as
yeah.
Biden's Bible.
And I feel like those tabs had like if the camera could have zoomed in, it would have been like, you know, when they call out this, like when they say this. It's just like she has tabs like, oh,
No,
you wanna
that's
talk about
exactly
that?
what it was. Yeah,
Boom.
yeah. Although I think the more expedient way to have organized it would have been like CNN, Washington
Yeah.
Post,
Yeah.
USA Today.
Exactly.
I can't wait to see what she's going to do
Oh
next.
my
I'm so
gosh.
excited.
All right. Thank you so much for watching The Yard Sign, the most important and relevant podcast in politics. Again, for the audio version of our podcast, our tech overlords have granted us permission to place it there over
For
at
now.
Google, Apple,
For
Spotify,
now.
Amazon, Audible. All right. You look for it. We'll be there. And of course, they're not giving us any of that revenue. But that's a whole nother conversation. Let's go ahead and dive in real quick and wrap this up on our final topic being 2022. All right. Again, we've got Tyler Payne, who's running for mayor of Treasure Island. And, Florida politics, never a dull moment. We're already talking about what's going to happen in this midterm and beyond, okay? Of course, we always love to talk about Florida's favorite candidate, Charlie Crist, so we'll start with him. Charlie Crist, I guess, putting some feelers out there and even getting some pushback among the Democratic Party with rumors that he might challenge either DeSantis or Rubio. And Democrats at the grassroots level don't seem to be interested in either one of those options. What do you guys think?
Why would they be? I think Charlie just needs to be thankful for what he's doing now.
It's like stay put, dude.
Come on, bro. Like,
No,
Well, yeah,
I want him to run for governor.
I know.
And
Yeah,
lose.
I want him to run so he can
Get
lose.
out of the
I know,
house.
Yeah.
I want him to run and lose. Yeah.
Running for governor where Democrats go to die
So I'm looking for the article right now to see
or end up in rehab.
to see where.
Well, that article didn't say. Well, that article was very polite, right, to him.
No,
it's
it
like
wasn't.
It's, well,
Is that Evan
well,
Ross?
no, it was polite in
Yeah.
the sense that it was saying things like, "Hey, I know you may not be used to being one of 435. You're used to being executive, but we really need you there. We don't really need you to run for governor." That what it wasn't saying was, bro, no one's taking you seriously. Like, stop with this back and forth. Like, no, everybody knows what you are.
Right.
You have no principles at all.
Yeah.
And so running for governor is going to be disastrous, and you need to let somebody else run that actually has a legit shot.
Yeah.
I love
He'll lose.
Because he would lose miserably. Because
Yep.
imagine the ads.
And
I mean,
then I think they would lose his congressional seat. I could bet you.
that's the
won't.
other thing, and it opens up that congressional seat for challenge. But I don't
Well,
know,
I
isn't
think
it?
he's the only one that can hold that seat.
No, it's a strong D
It's
seat
this
now, isn't
weird
it?
thing about
Re-
Charlie that everyone.
It's
or not
Pinellas,
everyone, so many people like
it's his
him.
hometown.
But I thought
so
redistricting
bizarre.
made that
It's-
one a pretty strong.
It's like the
DC.
dailies in Chicago. You know what I mean? It's like,
Right.
there are certain names that are always going to win. Speaking of which, Sarah Huckabee Sanders saying that she's going to give a run at governor in Arkansas.
Well, here's a question: What about
Can she win?
Latvala?
That's probably the only place that she would win because of the Huckabee name.
Could a Latvala win in that congressional seat? I'm not super familiar with Pinellas.
Not bad.
That's a good position.
I don't know.
I know that I don't know if he's termed out the cycle or not.
He's almost done. I don't know if
it's either this coming or next one.
I think it might be this
but
one.
he might be one that wants to jump ahead of time before he gets
or his dad.
No, his dad's not
dad.
He's done.
His
Dad to
dad's
get
not
crucified.
You think so? Okay.
Yeah,
there's
too much baggage
There's way
there.
too much baggage for that. I will say all the names that the article talked about as potential runnings for the governor, every single person. One, I had to Google, and two, I laughed every single time after Googling. And like, they don't do anything. There's some of them are sitting in the House of Representatives, and some are in Miami, some in Orlando. But I'm like, none of the names you can recognize.
Democrats make the mistake of, in order for them to get there, Florida. I think this is a real problem for Democrats in Florida, and that is, you know how within your party you kind of run to the right if you're a Republican, you run to the left if you're a Democrat, and then you try to win a general election. Well, the challenge for the Democrats is that for them to win, they have to go so far left. Florida, that's just not who Florida is.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when you look at Gillum, right? I mean, I think he surprised a lot of people, but but he was far left, and the Democrats chose him. They were excited about him, and he was a leftist. And then he tried to run for governor. It's like,
but had he spent those extra millions he sat on, he could have won.
You think so?
Yeah,
it was too close. It was way too close, and that amount of money could have made the difference.
But how much did that campaign spend to begin with?
How much did that campaign
50 million? Like, I'm just
Both
saying
of
I'm saying there's a point of diminishing return. If the difference is between you spending 5 million and 8 million, okay, that 3 million's a big deal. But if we're talking about 50 million versus 53 million, well, that doesn't. I mean, that's like a few more days of TV.
It was a pretty close margin as it was. I mean,
I want to see the line item budget for where the money that went up his nose actually wants to see.
Oh, jeez.
That's what I want.
What were you going to say, Tyler?
I was going to say, I think it's similar with my race and with Charlie. Like, I think people are just tired of the same old, and the article laid out so many candidates that could be ideal candidates for the Democrats, and hopefully people have common sense.
How much does it cost to run in a race like Treasure Island, though? Like, what does that cost?
Don't tell his
I'm not asking for anything. I'm not asking for anything proprietary to the campaign.
Ballpark.
Like about how much.
So I'm going to say, I don't know.
Well, if you ask his opponent, it's a single digit.
I'm going to say maybe $5,000 is what probably the last cycle occurred, and maybe a little bit more happening this cycle. I don't think anyone should be giving their numbers as a person that does treasury reports.
They'll see. You can request it on February 11th.
We can go on. We can go online, guys. Come on, it's all public record. We can go online.
It'll be public record on February.
So you're
11th.
saying you didn't have to file any reports to date?
I have. I've raised the last report I had about.
Tell me, say that number. Yes.
Raised.
How much?
15,000.
Okay.
The last report.
Florida's expensive. Florida's expensive. People in other states have no idea when you tell them.
The last time cycle was 5,000. His incumbent only spent $5,000 last time to become mayor of a city.
When people find out around the country that to be a state representative or something in Florida, to get 29 grand, state representative, and you have to raise like $100,000 to $300,000, they're like, what? You know, when you tell them that in general elections, sometimes it gets up to $500,000, they can't believe it. They're like, what?
It's just if the Democrats are smart, which the Florida Democratic Party I feel like has failed a lot with their candidates. Yeah. They would pick one of those young up-and-comers because I think there is a big shift towards a desire for just the old, the stale to get out and the young to get in.
Well, Freed is running, right?
Well, and you have this young woman in Orlando. Let me be polite. You have a young woman in Orlando who basically is an AOC clone.
Don't say Escamani.
It is Escamani. Yeah. And so people are trying to prop her up to run for governor. I was like, why? I was like, you're so young. Why run for governor? Go run for Congress and sit in Congress forever and bark all you want, you know, just like AOC does. Yeah. And again, kind of like we were talking about pollsters and weathermen and like, you don't even have to be right. You don't even have to do anything. Look at Kathy Castor and see, you know, what kind of significant legislation she's put out in the last 15 years.
It's
non-existent.
It's so annoying to see how much they just sit and they just bark, especially if they're in a district that has like +5, +10 on their side. They don't do anything. And that's why I agree with you. I think the bench on the Democrat side is very low.
Well, that's why
they have no one really, like, who could possibly run a statewide.
Well, the problem
the person
is
they had for statewide, Nikki Freed, they butchered in the media, talking about her relationship with her boyfriend and talking about her maybe over usage of some stimuluses. Like they've destroyed her on the media. So they no longer have a real legitimate statewide Democrat that they can run.
This is a center right country, and it's kind of center. It's like a little bit Democrat by registration, right? But it's center right. Really, when you think about ideologically, it's really a center right country, and Democrats make the mistake of trying to run in a purple state or a red state. They try to run as far left liberal. It just doesn't work. They're afraid of their base. They're afraid they're going to lose. Yeah. Votes in their base.
Well, speaking of Pinellas County, I mean, Florida politics, shout out to fellow Capricorn Peter Schorsch, put out a story today that there's an opening in the mayoral race in St. Petersburg for a moderate because all of them are running so far to the left. And that's surprising, given that you got State House Representative Wengay Newton, who I don't really see as being someone that's far left, very reasonable, very approachable, very likable guy. But they're all running to the left, and St. Petersburg has shown that it is willing to come to the center on a mayoral candidate. You had Baker, you had Foster, right? Exactly. And where Rick Kreisman has tried to push too far to the left, he's gotten pushback from the community.
Let me ask this question: for the mayoral race in St. Pete, is that this year, 2021? I don't know if it's 22. We have to find out. Someone do the Hector, do the research real quick on that one to see, because I'm almost positive someone made a comment that's the most upcoming election, a November election.
It would be in November.
Is 2021. So
I mean, other than governorship, I mean, it's I don't know. I mean, obviously the big question mark is who are Republicans going to put up for agriculture commissioner. I can't believe we botched that one.
It should be Matt. We should put up Matt.
Lord.
What was his last name?
Caldwell.
Matt Caldwell. We should put him up again. I think he was a great candidate in that situation. I think he'll do a great job. Now, when it comes to local elections,
he's shown he can get elected again, and he's in office still. So.
Yeah, he's in office somewhere.
Property.
So I think that'll be easy. Now,
he may not want to give that up. No, I mean, it's true.
It's
a
good gig. But I will say that I think when it comes to Hillsborough County, we see a lot of moving pieces in Hillsborough County. We see a lot of for county commission. Districts 2 and Districts 4, White and Stacy, are being termed out. So we're looking for strong Republicans there. We definitely have a candidate for District 1. We definitely have candidates for District 7 for county-wide. I mean, we have a pretty good bench in Hillsborough County. If Hillsborough County,
the problem is we don't have the base.
Yeah, the problem is Hillsborough County doesn't register voters. That's the problem with the Republicans, that we're not doing what we need to be doing to get these people elected. And as soon as we can get that started and that working, then we have a really good chance of getting people up and running, because midterm elections in Hillsborough County are not that many people show up for those. And then right after midterms is city, and city will be interesting this coming cycle.
We just need to register. We just need to register people. We just need to register people because politics, like a lot of things, is cyclical. The Democrats are in charge of the county commission, and part of the reason why they're in charge is because there were things that Republicans didn't do.
Correct.
I mean, you gotta own up to it, right? Some of the reason why the increased tax passed was because things weren't getting done. And so the voters were frustrated, and they thought, okay, I want more roads. I want my roads fixed. And they were willing to tax themselves. Now, they were lied to, but now the Democrats are in charge. So now they own it, and they have a supermajority. Mm-hmm. So over time, I think you'll see that people will start getting tired of it. There'll be nobody else to blame but yourselves, and that's going to open up the opportunity for Republicans to get out there and maybe win some seats back.
And you saw a big pushback this last cycle in regards to, and not the cycle, but just the last county commission meeting, where you had Overman wanting to have a conversation about extending the ban on masks, and that was something that got pushed back from the community heavily because she wanted it to be extended even further. And now there's no dancing in Ybor City and other parts of the country, in other parts of the county. So it's getting ridiculous, and I think people are getting really frustrated.
Dancing is illegal?
Yeah, this has become footloose.
Is that like a city ordinance or something?
Yes, you're not allowed to dance in the city.
Yeah, Kimberly came up with the answer we were looking for. St. Pete mayoral race, November 2021.
Okay, that's going to be fun.
So, well, and to kind of finish on what you were just talking about, Anibal there, again, it doesn't take a lot. Like in this county, we can still win this county back, and we can still win back some county seats if some effort were actually made in that direction. But the Hillsborough County Party, and again, we're getting like hyper local here, I mean, just refuses to do any of the necessary work, and that's why we continue lose elections up and down the ticket. So, all right. On that note, thank you so much to everybody for watching the Yard Sign, the most important relevant podcast in politics. Again, coming to you live from Bakemore Pies in Tampa, Florida. Make sure that if you need any digital marketing and advertising, you go to bakemorepies.com. On behalf of Joe Wicker, Tyler Payne, and Anibal Cabrera over there, that pretty. Look at those good-looking guys over there. All right. Thanks, guys, so much. And again, catch the audio version of our podcast on Apple, Google, Spotify, Audible, and Amazon platforms. We'll see you back here
Shout
next
out
week.
for Tyler. Give his info.
Yeah, one more time. Go ahead, Tyler. Tell them where they can find your race.
VoteTylerPayne.com. You can donate. You can sign up to volunteer. It's elections March 9th, so it's coming up quick. So I can use all the help we can get. Gonna win it at the doors.
All right, very cool. Well, best of luck, and thank you for running, because we all know what a huge commitment that is, and so best of luck to you. And we'll have you back afterwards for a celebratory visit, hopefully. All right. On that note, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.